Billy Clifford and Mrs. Beech. There were so many reasons Aaron had always disliked school: teachers, desks, lines, people. But now that there was Billy Clifford, Aaron hated school. Billy Clifford was taller than Aaron and bigger than Aaron, and Aaron supposed Billy was stronger than him. Billy Clifford had brown hair, and the girls said he had a perfect face. But to Aaron, it was a terrifying face, with a Draco Malfoy smile. Aaron lived in mortal fear of meeting Billy in the hallway, because on the 24th day of school, Billy Clifford had passed him in the cafeteria and said, "If I ever see you in the hallway again, you little faggot, I will beat the shit out of you." Billy had smiled as he said this, like if he was passing on a good joke to a friend, and then he'd laughed. Aaron didn't think it was funny, especially since Billy Clifford lived next door. The Cliffords had moved in the previous summer. Aaron had watched from his bedroom window as big men in blue shirts and sweat stains carried furniture and boxes into the house next door. He'd first seen Billy riding his bike up and down the street. Aaron also had a bike he sometimes rode up and down the street. He'd noticed that Billy didn't wear a helmet. Aaron's parents made him wear a Spider-Man helmet that made him look like a little kid. Billy, with his bike and no helmet, seemed cool. Aaron and Billy began riding bikes together. They played hide and seek with Nerf guns. They played Lego Hobbit and Call of Duty Ghosts. They spent almost every day together that summer. Then, just before school started, Billy stopped coming over. When Aaron asked Billy if he could play, he said he couldn't. He was too busy. One day Aaron heard him playing in his backyard. He knocked on Billy's front door, but no one answered. Another time, Aaron saw him riding his bike and went out to join him. But Billy took off down the street before Aaron even got off the driveway. He didn't see Billy again until school started in August, and for some reason, Billy Clifford hated Aaron. The second day of school, Billy Clifford pushed Aaron to the ground during recess, grabbed the shoe off Aaron's left foot, and threw it into the tree. Aaron had to wait for everyone to leave before he could get it down. The 10th day of school, Aaron looked up from his desk to see Billy in the hallway outside his classroom. When Billy saw Aaron look up, he stuck up his middle finger, said a very bad word, and laughed. Billy's laugh sounded to Aaron like the grinding of a saw. On the 12th day of school, Billy caught Aaron at his locker. He was wearing a white t-shirt. Billy told Aaron to look at him, but Aaron wouldn't. He saw the muscle in the back of Billy's arms and it scared him. Billy bent over Aaron and said again, "Look at me." Aaron's eyes moved from the white of Billy's shirt to the white of his teeth. Everything in Aaron's field of vision was white and smelled of sweat and rust. He couldn't look up, and he couldn't move. He was a fly suspended in ice. With his compound eyes, he saw Billy take a step toward him. He saw Billy's fists flex. He saw Billy's throat bob with a swallow. He saw Billy's left ear pulse and burn red in a fog of white. "Look at me, bitch," he saw Billy say. He saw all this in an instant, a mosaic of hate and motion, but he didn't move. He didn't even breathe. Billy's breath filled the air between them. He looked at Aaron with eyes like stones, and Aaron waited to die. Instead, Billy turned and walked away, taking the white and leaving the hallway cold as steel, full of jagged shadows. Aaron the fly quivered against the lockers for some time before the ommatidia of his eyes coalesced, and Aaron the boy saw he was alone in a vast hallway, tiled with squares of vinyl that stretched into an eternity of fear. Precisely 12 days later, Billy Clifford passed him in the cafeteria and said as pleasantly as if he were passing on a good joke to a friend, "If I ever see you in the hallway again, you little faggot, I will beat the shit out of you." Billy Clifford never caught Aaron alone after that. He hurled the occasional fag in Aaron's direction, or flipped him off, but never got close enough to touch him. Not until Friday, April 6th. It was the 124th day of school, an early dismissal. Aaron didn't know why school was being let out early, but he didn't care. He was just glad it was over, and excited for the chance to get onto his PS4 before Leia got home. All the teachers had taken their classes to the cafeteria, and he stood with everyone else waiting for the bell. Billy and Aaron were in different classes and normally dismissed from different areas of the cafeteria, but on this day, Aaron looked over to see Billy standing in the line next to his. Billy saw him and smiled his Draco Malfoy smile. Aaron looked around. Most of the teachers were lounging by the cafeteria entrance. So far away they might as well be gone. Before Billy could open with his usual insults, Aaron looked into the blank eyes of that perfect face and said, "Asshole." He said it as evenly as if he were saying his own name. It sounded so good to him he said it again, but softly so that only he could hear. "Asshole." Billy's smile fell from his face like a frame from a door slammed too hard. "Fag," he retorted, but he said it like he was reading someone else's lines. This gave Aaron the courage to take a step toward him. "Shut up, Billy," he said. "Shut up." "Bitch," Billy said softly, and looked away. Aaron took 2 more steps toward Billy Clifford. He now stood less than a foot away from a boy who looked small standing in this huge cafeteria. Aaron checked the entrance to the cafeteria again. The teachers were still chatting, oblivious. He looked back at Billy. "I hate you," he said. "Faggot," Billy said, and he didn't look away this time. Aaron didn't reply. He looked at Billy's mouth, and it was bright red. His eyes moved from the red of Billy's mouth to the red of his cheeks, then his ears. Billy's stupid face filled Aaron's entire field of vision, and it looked as if it were smeared in blood. He took a final step forward and aimed to smash his fist into that face. Instead, he hit the collarbone and was surprised by how much it hurt his hand. "Faggot," Billy hissed again and lunged toward Aaron. Instinctively, Aaron raised his fist and slammed it against the side of Billy's head. Billy staggered back and Aaron hit him again, this time with a punch to the side and a kick to the shin that dropped Billy to his knees. Aaron was moving in for another hit when his teacher, Mrs. Beech, grabbed him by the arm and pulled him away. In years past, Aaron had attacked his principal, other teachers, and even policemen who had tried to step in during one of his rages, and that was just first grade. Now he was in 5th grade, and interrupting an out-of-control Aaron was even riskier. But Mrs. Beech had a way of dealing with Aaron that kept him from dropping into his own world too often, and could quickly bring him back when he did. She held Aaron by his right arm as he lunged and thrashed toward Billy. She looked at Billy, who had scrambled back to his feet, and watched Aaron warily. She noticed the left side of Billy's face was red, but he wasn't bleeding. He opened his mouth to say something, but she stopped him. "Don't," she said. "Not a word, Billy Clifford. Not one word." Billy closed his mouth. Mrs. Beech looked down at Aaron. He had stopped thrashing, but was breathing heavily, and his face was flushed. He glared darkly at Billy. She kept a firm grip on his arm. "Are you ready to go with me, Aaron?" she asked. He continued to glare at Billy and said nothing. "Aaron," Mrs. Beech said, "look at me." It was a few seconds before he turned away from Billy and looked up at her, and when he did, she could see he was close to tears. She let go of his arm and took his hand. He gripped it tightly. "Let's go, Aaron," she said, and walked him, hand in hand, away from Billy, away from his class, and out of the huge cafeteria crowded with sound and eyes. In the hallway, sitting with Aaron on black and gray vinyl tiles, still holding his hand, Mrs. Beech heard how Billy had stolen Aaron's shoe on the 2nd day, trapped him in the hallway on the 12th, and bullied and insulted him until on the 124th day of school, Aaron had had enough and started swearing and beating Billy up first. "And if he starts insulting me again and doing stupid stuff," he said, "I'm going to get stronger and beat his butt. Billy Clifford is a jerk, a wuss, and an idiot." Aaron had regained his composure, but still burned with a dark rage when he spoke of Billy. He looked up at Mrs. Beech. "What's an animal that talks strong yet acts like a coward?" he asked. Mrs. Beech thought for a moment. "I don't know. A Pomeranian? Why?" "What's a Pomeranian?" "It's a little furry dog. It bounces around your ankles, barking like crazy, but never actually bites. My sister has one." Aaron nodded solemnly. "That's Billy Clifford, then. He's a big Pomeranian." Mrs. Beech laughed. She laughed so loudly it seemed the hallway laughed with her. Aaron looked at her quizzically. "What's funny?" Mrs. Beech shook her head and couldn't stop laughing. Was it what I said about Billy Clifford being a big Pomeranian? Mrs. Beech nodded and laughed so hard she snorted. Why is that funny? Aaron asked. He looked so earnest she laughed even more. Her ears began to hurt from laughing. Aaron asked her again, Why is that funny? It just is, she said, and I really shouldn't be laughing, but I can't help it. She kept laughing, so Aaron laughed with her. Billy Clifford is a big Pomeranian, he repeated, looking expectantly to Mrs. Beech. This time, for some reason, his joke had the opposite effect, and Mrs. Beech's laughter subsided. He opened his mouth to repeat the joke, but she shook her head. Suddenly, Aaron could feel a serious conversation come between them. He waited. Mrs. Beech wiped her eyes and crossed her legs underneath. The serious conversation settled into Aaron's lap like a cat. Mrs. Beech said, Aaron, what you did today was wrong. Do you understand? Aaron nodded. Billy was even more wrong to bully you the way he has, but you should have told me about this when it first happened, instead of letting it go on for as long as it did, then starting a fight with him today. She paused. I'm proud of you for sticking up for yourself, Aaron, but that is not the way to handle a bully. Self-defense is one thing, but what you did today was not self-defense. Aaron waited. Mrs. Beech had taken hold of his hand again and held it tightly as she spoke. It felt good. If Billy ever calls you a name again, threatens you, or does anything to bully you, tell me right away, okay? Aaron nodded. Promise? Aaron nodded again. Good. Mrs. Beech squeezed Aaron's hand tightly, then let go as she stood and dusted herself off. Come on, I have to get back and you have a bus to catch. Suddenly, the serious conversation that had sat with him like a comfortable pet tensed and grew heavy in his lap. He couldn't get up. Mrs. Beech reached down to take Aaron's hand so they could leave. He shook his head furiously. She looked toward the cafeteria, where one of the other teachers had stepped into the hall and was watching them. Mrs. Beech turned back toward Aaron. She seemed eager to go, but unwilling to leave him. He felt like he'd done something wrong, and a brown terrible rose inside of him, sharp like a jagged metal ball. It pushed at his eyes, making them water. He avoided looking directly at Mrs. Beech out of fear he'd see anger and hatred. Instead, he focused on a spot just past her head, and as loudly as he could, he said with his eyes what he could not say with his words. Mrs. Beech, if it's a while before I see Billy Clifford again, I'll be so glad for that. Blood thrummed in Aaron's ears. Shapes and colors blurred in pools, and he steeled himself against the brown terrible which threatened to fill his head. Then someone warm knelt next to him, squeezed his shoulder, and with a very soft voice said, You want to stay here? Aaron felt brave enough to look at Mrs. Beech kneeling beside him, and nodded. She smiled with eyes like candles so bright they pushed the brown terrible away and cleared Aaron's vision. Why don't you wait here until your bus arrives? She said. I'll call you when it's time to go. Aaron nodded again. He was pleased and nodded to face the eyes and the sounds of everyone in the cafeteria, especially Billy Clifford. Mrs. Beech turned and walked away. Shadows fled in her wake, and the air felt warm where she had stood next to him, in a hallway tiled with squares of black and gray vinyl that stretched into an eternity of light.